Hi, everybody. Today, for homework, you're going to be watching this video and taking notes on it. Okay, actually, there's another one that I will upload as well. That's a different person teaching. So you can hear it from me and you can also hear it from this other person. Okay, so it's two different people talking and basically telling you the same thing. But watch these videos and take notes for our lesson tomorrow. Okay, so today the lesson is about subtracting. Subtracting decimals. Same thing when you subtract decimals is the same way when you subtract whole numbers. There's nothing different either. Okay, but there are some things that you need to watch out for. Okay, so first example we are going to do is 5.92. Take away 4.37. First thing we need to make sure is that the numbers are indeed lined up properly. The ones with the ones, the decimal point with the decimal point, the tenths with the tenths, and the hundredths with the hundredth. This is easy to do if you're careful, if you're not rushing, and it's going to make a big difference whether or not you get the right answer. Okay? Now, when we subtract, we should know by now, right? At this point in fifth grade, we should know how to subtract numbers. We are starting with the 2. In this case, if we are talking about the place value, is 200th. And I have to take away 700th. Well, there's no way I can take 7 away from 2. So I need to go to the neighbor and borrow from here. So this 9 turns into 8. And then all you do, you put a 1 in front of this. Then we have 12. 12 take away 7 equals 5. 8 take away 3 equals 5. Bring down the decimal point. And 5 take away 4 equals 1. And that's your final answer. One thing also I tell the kids all the time, when they were in my room face to face, make sure you write it neatly. Once you cross it and you take one to put here, make sure you write the other one right above right away and make it neat and visible. So some write it so teeny tiny that they cannot even see the number there. Okay, so just little tips that will help you be successful. Let's try another one. 8.77. Take away 5.56. Decimal point is aligned. My ones are aligned. The tenth and the hundredth, everything is one under the other properly. So let's try to subtract. Okay, so here I have 7 to take away 6. That leaves me with 1. 7 to take away 5 will leave me with 2. Bring down your decimal point. And 8 take away 5 equals 3. This one you didn't even have to borrow because the numbers at the top were enough to take away the numbers at the bottom. Now, there will be some tricky ones. Okay, the first one I'm going to do is this one here. And I'll talk about what are some of the errors I notice. Take away 2.38. Again, my numbers are aligned properly. Okay, the ones under the ones, the decimal point under the decimal point, the tenth under the tenth, and I have the 800th here, and I have nothing here. Well, what happens is a lot of kids, they just copy the 8 at the bottom. No. Remember, first thing you need to do when there is an empty space is to add a 0 there. That's what you need to do first. Then you go from there. So you're going to see that the answer here is not 8, because I have what here? I have 0. That means I have nothing in my thousands place, and I need to take away 8,000. I have 0 in the hundredth place, and I have to take away 8. Well, I don't have enough hundredth, so I do have to go to my neighbor. So cross this one, the 5 turns into a 4, put it right there right away, and put your 1 in front of the number. Now I have 10 hundredths to take away 8 hundredths. It means 2. Then 4, take away 3 equals 1. Bring down the decimal point. 3 take away 2 is 1. And that's your final answer. This part of borrowing, boys and girls, is something we have been doing since second grade, third grade. So we should be good with this part. You just have to be careful, not rush. Take your time, okay? Now, the other thing is, don't forget to add the 0 here. Don't just write 8. See, it's not 8. It's actually 2. You need to add the 0 to that space. Another one that we have here, and that can be a little problem too, and I'm going to write it this way first so you can see what I'm trying to say. Okay, you may see questions like that, so don't try to do it in your head. I need you to stack the numbers first. Okay, now here we're gonna go to the same problem we had when we were doing adding decimals. Remember, I have to stack the numbers up, and if up and down, right? And if I have a decimal point here, I need to have a decimal point for this one too. Well, where does that decimal point go? It goes after the whole number or after the ones place. Look in your place value chart. Every time you wrote the ones, right after the ones, you would see the decimal point. And this is the ones place, right? Or just think about the whole number. The decimal point always goes after the whole number. So don't forget to put your decimal point there. Now you can start, but be careful again. We are taking away, what are we starting with? We are starting with the 10 decimal point, and I'm going to take away this. So this one is at the bottom. Be careful, okay? So 10, take away 452 is 4 and 52. So it's 10 and take away 4 and 52. Well, again, I could see many of you just writing 52 here. You can't. If there's a space that is blank here, first you really need to add the zeros. Always. If you're adding or subtracting, if there are empty spaces, add the zeros. Now, this is going to be a little bit more challenging because when you start here with the 0, you can't take away 2. So you have to come to this 0. Well, I can borrow from nothing. So guess what? I have to borrow from this. Oh, again, I have nothing there. So you would have to borrow from this one. We can do it this way. Okay, I'm going to do it with you. And then I'm going to try to show you a little trick to see if it's going to help you. Okay, so from this 0, I can borrow from this. I can borrow from this. I can borrow from this one, right? So I borrow from this. This one turns into a 0. And guess what? The 1 goes here. Now I can cross this, turn this into a 9, and put the 1 here. And then do the same thing. This turn into a 9, and then put the 1 here. And now you can subtract. 10 take away 2 equals 8. 9 take away 5 equals 4. Bring down the decimal point. 9 take away 4 equals 5. And there's nothing here, so it stays as 0. So the answer is 5.48. Okay, I'm going to give you a little tip for this that may make your life a little bit easier. But this is not wrong. to me is just a lot of going over and over and over and crossing, and it can be confusing. And especially if you're not careful, if you're not slow, because if you're rushing, you're going to skip steps. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you a different way. If it works for you, awesome. If you feel like, I don't know what Miss Miller is talking about, then guess what? You can try this way, whichever works for you. Okay, so I have 10 take away 4.52. So let me try. Okay, so what I said was that this 0 cannot take a borrow from here. It cannot borrow from here. So it can borrow from the 1. But when I look at this number here, this number is the number 10. What I do, I borrow from this 10 instead. Well, if you have 10, you take away 1. What do you get? You get a 9. Just don't forget that the 9 is in the 1's place, right? Just 9. Then now you are actually bringing it over here. And then you do one less step than if you had to do it the other way. So 10 take away 2 equals 8. 9 take away 5 is 4. Decimal point. 9 take away, remember this is not 10 anymore, it's 9. Take away 4 is 5. So this eliminated the whole thing of going from this one. I went to the 10 instead. It's just one less step that can help you. But either way is fine. You might want to rewatch this one, slow it down, try to understand what I'm doing. You can practice it. All you have to do is make sure it's neat. Make sure you do one step at a time so you don't get confused with your answers, okay? Or with all these numbers here, all this crossing out, all right? So as far as the steps for subtracting, remember number 1, first make sure if it's a whole number that you know where the decimal point is. So add the decimal point to the whole number, right? If your question has a whole number. So number 1 may happen. You may need to do it. For number 10, you had to. But for the other 3, we already had the decimals there, so you didn't have to do anything. But whenever you have a whole number, you do have to add the decimal to it. Then make sure you stack the numbers. Stack numbers properly, correctly. Make sure the decimal point is under the decimal point. The ones is under the ones. Third step, add zeros to blank spaces. Whether you are adding or subtracting, you must add those zeros. Okay, and the fourth one, do the work. Do the work. Okay, so tomorrow when you come to class, hopefully you will have watched this one. There's also another one from a different teacher. It's a guy and it's a different person talking. So sometimes, it's nice to hear from 2 different people. Try watching both, taking notes. You can watch mine first, do the other one, and pause and solve his, and then check your answers. There are a lot of things you can do to help yourself, okay? And then tomorrow I will do some of these with you, and then we're gonna get to practice more in class. Sounds good? So I hope you all have a great evening. Make sure you do this as your homework, and I will see you tomorrow.